Many women with ADHD spend years believing they have a motivation problem when what they actually have is an energy problem. They look at their lives and wonder why simple things seem so difficult. Why does choosing dinner feel exhausting after a workday? Why can they spend an hour researching something small and still not make a decision? Why do they sometimes feel mentally exhausted before lunch, even though they haven't done anything particularly demanding? The answer is often hidden in a concept that receives far less attention than it deserves: decision fatigue. Most people assume exhaustion comes from doing too much, but in many cases, exhaustion comes from deciding too much. Every day, your brain is constantly making choices. Some are obvious, like deciding what to wear, what to eat, or what task to start first. Others happen in the background. Should I answer this message now or later? Should I click on this article? Should I buy this product? Should I accept this invitation? Should I keep reading? Should I take a break? Each decision may seem insignificant on its own, but together they create a constant demand on the brain's executive systems. For people with ADHD, those systems are already working harder than most people realize. One of the biggest misunderstandings about ADHD is that it is simply a problem of attention. In reality, ADHD affects many of the brain functions responsible for planning, prioritizing, organizing, filtering information, and making decisions. Throughout the day, your brain is constantly evaluating options and determining what deserves attention. For neurotypical brains, much of this process happens efficiently and automatically. For ADHD brains, it often requires significantly more conscious effort. What appears to be a simple decision from the outside may involve dozens of competing thoughts beneath the surface. Imagine standing in a grocery store. Someone else may quickly choose a brand of yogurt and move on. An ADHD brain might immediately begin comparing ingredients, nutritional value, price, flavor, whether it fits current health goals, whether it has been tried before, whether another option might be better, and whether buying the wrong one will feel wasteful. This process happens rapidly, often without conscious awareness. The issue is not intelligence. In fact, many ADHD adults are exceptionally intelligent. The challenge is that the brain is processing more variables simultaneously, and that processing requires energy. This is one reason why many ADHD adults feel exhausted by things that seem easy for other people. The problem is rarely the task itself. The problem is everything that happens before the task begins. Before sending an email, there may be 5 possible ways to write it. Before starting a project, there may be 10 possible approaches. Before making a purchase, there may be 20 tabs open comparing options. The brain becomes trapped in evaluation mode. Instead of moving forward, it continues gathering information and analyzing possibilities. Over time, this creates an enormous cognitive burden. What makes decision fatigue particularly challenging is that it often accumulates invisibly. You may wake up feeling rested and capable. By noon, you have already made hundreds of decisions. You have decided what to wear, what to eat, which messages to answer, what work to prioritize, how to respond to people, whether to exercise, what to buy, what to postpone, and what to focus on. None of these decisions seem significant in isolation, but collectively they consume mental resources. Eventually, the brain begins to lose efficiency. Choices become harder. Focus becomes weaker. Emotional regulation becomes more difficult. Small problems suddenly feel overwhelming. Many women with ADHD notice this phenomenon most strongly in the evening. They finish work and find themselves unable to decide what to cook, what show to watch, or whether to tackle a simple household task. They often interpret this as laziness or lack of discipline. In reality, their decision-making system may simply be depleted. Just as a muscle becomes fatigued after repeated use, the executive functions of the brain become fatigued after continuous demands. The difficulty is that our culture tends to praise productivity while ignoring the mental cost of constant decision-making. Modern life amplifies this problem dramatically. Human beings did not evolve in environments filled with endless options. We evolved in relatively predictable environments where choices were limited. Today, we face an overwhelming abundance of possibilities. Open a streaming service, and you are presented with thousands of options. Open social media, and you encounter an endless stream of information competing for your attention. Visit an online store, and you can compare hundreds of products instantly. While this appears to offer freedom, it often creates a hidden form of stress. Every option requires evaluation. Every evaluation consumes energy. For ADHD brains, this abundance can become particularly overwhelming because filtering is already more demanding. The brain struggles not only with choosing, but with determining which information should be ignored. This means that environments with excessive choices often create cognitive overload. Instead of feeling empowered by possibilities, many people end up feeling mentally exhausted by them. More options do not always lead to better decisions. Sometimes they simply lead to more fatigue. There is also an emotional dimension to decision fatigue that is rarely discussed. Many ADHD adults have spent years questioning themselves. They may have grown up receiving criticism for forgetfulness, impulsivity, inconsistency, or unfinished projects. Over time, this can create a fear of making mistakes. Decisions become emotionally charged. The brain is no longer evaluating options objectively. It is also trying to avoid regret, disappointment, criticism, and failure. A simple choice suddenly carries emotional weight. What if I choose wrong? What if I waste money? What if I regret this later? What if there is a better option? This emotional layer dramatically increases the cognitive effort required to make decisions. One of the most exhausting patterns is the tendency to keep decisions open indefinitely. Many ADHD adults carry a collection of unresolved questions in the background of their minds. Should I change careers? Should I move? Should I take this course? Should I start that business? Should I join that program? These questions often remain active for weeks, months, or even years. The brain revisits them repeatedly, consuming energy every time they reappear. Psychologists sometimes refer to these as open loops. Open loops require attention because the brain has not yet reached closure. Even when the final answer is imperfect, making a decision often frees more mental energy than continuing to revisit the question endlessly. This is why structure can be so powerful for ADHD brains. Many people hear the word structure and imagine restriction. They imagine rigid schedules and inflexible routines. But healthy structure is not about limitation. It is about reducing unnecessary decisions. Every routine removes a choice that would otherwise consume energy. When you already know what time you exercise, what you eat for breakfast, or how you start your workday, your brain no longer needs to negotiate those decisions repeatedly. The result is not less freedom. The result is more available energy for the decisions that actually matter. This principle explains why many highly successful people simplify parts of their lives. They wear similar clothing. They follow consistent routines. They automate recurring tasks. They understand that decision-making is a limited resource. By reducing trivial decisions, they preserve mental energy for creative thinking, problem-solving, and meaningful work. For ADHD adults, this strategy can be especially transformative because executive function resources are often more precious and more easily depleted. Another powerful approach is learning to identify what truly deserves your decision-making energy. Not every choice requires extensive analysis. Many people unknowingly spend enormous amounts of energy trying to optimize low-stakes decisions while neglecting higher priority areas of life. Before investing significant mental effort into a choice, it can be helpful to ask whether this decision will still matter in 6 months. Often, the answer is no. This simple question can immediately reduce the emotional intensity surrounding many daily decisions. Developing personal filters can also reduce cognitive load. Instead of evaluating every option from scratch, you create guiding principles that simplify the process. Perhaps your filter is whether something supports your health, protects your nervous system, aligns with your values, or contributes to your long-term goals. These filters act like mental shortcuts. They allow the brain to eliminate options more quickly without endless comparison. Over time, this creates a sense of clarity that many ADHD adults find deeply relieving. The most important thing to understand is that decision fatigue is not a character flaw. It is not evidence that you are weak, lazy, indecisive, or incapable. It is often the natural consequence of a brain that is processing an extraordinary amount of information every day. When you recognize this, you can stop fighting yourself and begin designing your life more intentionally. Instead of demanding more willpower, you can reduce unnecessary complexity. Instead of blaming yourself for feeling overwhelmed, you can create systems that support your nervous system. Many ADHD adults spend years trying to become more productive when what they actually need is to become less overloaded. Sometimes the solution is not adding another planner, another app, another strategy, or another productivity system. Sometimes the solution is simply reducing the number of decisions your brain must carry every day. Because a calmer life is not created only through rest, it is also created through simplicity. It is created by protecting your cognitive energy, reducing unnecessary choices, and recognizing that your brain has limits that deserve respect. The goal is not to make perfect decisions. The goal is to stop draining yourself before the day has even begun. When you learn to manage decision fatigue, you often discover that the energy you were searching for was there all along. It was simply being consumed by hundreds of choices you never realized were costing you so much. If this resonates with you, let me know in the comments. What daily decision drains your energy the most? And if you're interested in building a calmer nervous system, more sustainable energy, and a life that works with your brain instead of against it, subscribe to Complex Brain Living. New videos every Wednesday and Sunday.